Deva Krishna, who is the eternal servitor of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So go through the words. Saha,
Saha,
Kadachit,
Kadachit,
Upasinaha,
Upasinaha,
Atma Apanavam,
Atmapanavam,
Atmanaha,
Atmanaha,
Kadarsha,
Dadarsha,
Bahu Riksha Acharyaha,
Bhavarishtacharyaha,
Mina Sangha,
Minasanga,
Samutitam,
Samamritam,
Kadachit Upasina,
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atma Panavam, Atmanaha,
Atmapanaha,
Darsha Pavriksha Charyo,
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Mina Sangha Samutitam,
Minasanga Samutitam,
Kadachit Upasina,
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atma Panavam, Atmanaha,
Atmapanavam Atmanaha,
Darsha Pavriksha Charyo,
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Mina Sangha Samutitam,
Minasanga Samutitam,
Kadachit Upasina,
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atma Panavam, Atmanaha,
Atmapanavam Atmanaha,
Darsha Pavriksha
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Mina Sangha Samutitam,
Minasanga Samutitam.
Shante, s'il vous plaît.
Sakadachiru
Bhavacharyo,
Minasanga Samudita
Minasanga Samutitam. Sakadachit Upasina, Sakadachit Upasina, Atmapanavam Atmanaha, Atmapanavam Atmanaha, Dadarsha Bhavacharyo, Dadarsha Bhavacharyo, Minasanga Samutitam, Minasanga Samutitam.
Sakadachit Upasina
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atmapanavam Atmana
Atmapanavam Atmana,
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Minasanga Samutitam
Minasanga Samutitam.
Sakadachit Upasina
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atmapanavam Atmana
Atmapanavam Atmana,
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Mina Sangha Samutitam
Minasanga Samutitam.
In New York, there was one disciple of Prabhupada there named Archita, and he was reminding us that Prabhupada would have devotees chant the verse like 10 or 15 times. So he wanted people to memorize it, so anybody else wants to chant, you're welcome to.
His idea was to memorize it.
Yeah, the more you hear it, the more it sticks in your mind, yeah? Yeah, so some people, they're really strict about 2 men will chant, or 3 men, and then one lady, but it's completely artificial.
Sakadachit Upasina
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atmapanavam Atmana
Atmapanavam Atmana,
Dadarsha
Dadarsha Bhavacharyo,
Minasanga Samudhitam
Minasanga Samutitam.
Sakadachit Upasina
Sakadachit Upasina,
Atmapanavam Atmana
Atmapanavam Atmana,
Dadashabha Vrichacharyo
Dadashabha Vrichacharyo
Mina Sangha Samuthitam
Mina Sangha Samuthitam.
Any of the ladies from Zen?
Sakadachi Dupasina Atmapana Mahatmana Dadashabha Vrichacharyo Mina Sangha Samuthitam.
Okay, we'll go through the meanings. Saha,
Saha,
he, Sabari Muni.
He Sabari Muni.
Kadachit,
Kadachit,
one day.
one day.
Upasinaha,
Upasina,
sitting down.
sitting down.
Atma apanavam,
Atma Apanam,
degrading oneself from the platform of tapasya.
degrading oneself from the platform of tapasya.
Atmanaha,
Atmana,
self-caused.
self-caused.
It's actually time to take off the offering noise. Somebody's doing it for you? I'm one of these very strict Brahmanas. I was 3 seconds late with the Mangal Arati and I was on time for the offering before. Atmana,
Atmana,
self-caused.
self-caused.
Darsha,
Darsha,
observed.
observed.
Baharicha Acharya,
Bhagavad
Sabari Muni, who is expert in chanting mantras.
Sabari Muni, who is expert in chanting mantras.
Sangaha,
Sangha,
the sexual affairs of fish. Samutitam,
Samutitam,
caused by this incident.
caused by this incident.
Translation. Thereafter, one day, while Sabari Muni, who was expert in chanting mantras, was sitting in a secluded place, he thought to himself about the cause of his fall down, which was simply that he had associated himself with the sexual affairs of the fish. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Actually, sometimes we chant the verse, don't we? Responsibly. Thereafter, one day,
One day,
while Sabari Muni,
while Sabari Muni,
who was expert in chanting mantras,
was expert in chanting mantras,
was sitting in a secluded place, thought to himself about the cause of his fall down, which was simply that he had associated himself with the sexual affairs of the fish. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Sabari Muni had fallen from his austerity because of a Vaishnava aparat. The history is that when Garuda wanted to eat fish, Sabari Muni unnecessarily gave the fish shelter under his care. Because Garuda's plans for eating were disappointed, Sabari Muni certainly committed a great offense to a Vaishnava. Because of this Vaishnava aparad, an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, Sabari Muni fell from its exalted position of mystic tapasya. One should not therefore impede the activities of a Vaishnava. This is a lesson we must learn from this incident concerning Sabari Muni. Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshunanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Consciousness Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tesa Swati Devi Kauravani Pachayani Nivishesha Yadi Chitani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Srimati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Chakalpatavishcha, Kripa Sindhu Vyachcha, Bhaktanam Bhavadevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So the Garuda wanted to eat this king of the fish, and but Sabari Muni had a friendly relationship with the fish because they were sharing the same pond, and didn't like seeing the leader of the fish carried away by Garuda. So he cursed Garuda, which was not a good thing. So the cause of Vaishnava Parada is us thinking that we're in a superior position to a Vaishnava, and that therefore we know better than they do, or they're subject to our opinion or instruction. So Lord Chaitanya has really saved us from Vaishnava Aparad by teaching the third verse of the Shastaka. Because he says that we should think of ourselves as lower than the strong sheep, and that we should manina, we shouldn't demand respect from others, but manadena, we should give everyone respect. So if we actually assimilate that verse and practice it, then we wouldn't offend a Vaishnava, because we would think, who am I to criticize this Vaishnava? This person has surrendered himself to the lotus feet of Krishna, and I'm just trying to become a Vaishnava, and I have so many anarthas, but this person is fixed in his service to Krishna. Who am I to comment on his behavior, or criticize his behavior, or whatever? So that's one point I don't think that we have really mentioned. A lot of things I would normally say we've mentioned in the last few days. I'm not a big Bhagavat insider like Raja Rain, who can speak on the same verse for 30 days. I'm not sure if we did quote that verse. There's a verse that talks about the 6 kinds of Vaishnava Aparad. It's not in our Shastras that we study, but it is in one of the purports. From another literature, I think one of the Puranas. And it goes, Hanti Nindati Vaidvesji Vaishnavan Nabidanati Kudite Yati No Harsham Darshane Patitani Shat. Whoever kills or blasphemes a Vaishnava, whoever is envious of Vaishnava, or angry with him, or whoever does not offer him obeisances or feel joy upon seeing him, certainly falls into a hellish condition. So, of course, the way we can avoid Vaishnava Aparad is if we make it a habit of thinking of the glories of the Vaishnavas. If we're always thinking about the glories of the Vaishnavas, then we'll be happy to see them. If we think about them as like, you who always drinks the milk at prasadam so I don't get any, you who's chants japa so loud I can't hear my own rounds, right? Then when we see the people, we'll think negative things about them. So we have to consider this person is pleasing Prabhupada by distributing so many books. This person is chanting japa so nicely every day. This person has committed so many years of their lives to practicing Krishna consciousness. This person is dear to Krishna in so many ways. So let's see, what else can be said? So the reaction was the material desires awoken in the heart of Sabari, which weren't there before, but as a reaction to the offense, became more materialistic. So in this Hare Krishna movement, so many people have fallen down from high positions, so this may be the cause of some of those. Because you can offend any Vaishnava. What's really interesting is, I don't remember if I made this point here, but in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, Srimad Parisisvara
Yeah.
that in the Dhruva Maharaj Leela, his stepmother won't let him sit on the lap of his father. His stepbrother is on the lap of his father, and he wants to also sit on the lap of his father. But his stepmother is very arrogant and said, unless you die and take your birth again from my womb, you won't have the right to sit on the lap of your father, which is amazingly callous, cruel thing to say. But so this offense happened to Dhruva before he even started practicing sadhana bhakti. But both the stepmother and his stepbrother had to die untimely because of that Vaishnava aparad, even though the aparad was made before the person started practicing sadhana bhakti. So, basically it means that it doesn't, so like, just because somebody has been around for a number of years as a devotee doesn't mean they can mistreat the newer devotees, or just because somebody's a swami doesn't mean you can lord it over the brahmacharis, or whatever. Because every single person who has, there's actually amazing statement in the Nectar of Devotion. Let me see if I can find it here. I didn't check my WhatsApp messages because I'm not up to the standard level of usage of these electronic devices. So I didn't realize I was giving class until like 5 o'clock. And although I chanted 16 rounds, I'd only slept 3 hours, so I decided I would sleep rather than spend a lot of time preparing. But there's a nice verse, let's see if I can find it here, talking about how valuable a devotee is in the Nectar of Devotion. The beautiful thing about the Nectar of Devotion is it quotes so many other Vedic literatures about the value of the different practices of bhakti. And it's very good. There's so many different items that Prabhupada put in our morning program and in our practice in general. And these are all mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion along with examples from the Vedic literature. So it's a very, very wonderful book, and everyone should read it. And Prabhupada gave it to us very early on in 1970, I believe, because he wanted people to read it. And when he took initiation, his guru told him to read that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's a very important book. So let's see if I can find this nice quote here. It's from another book. There's a quote that I read not too long ago that talks about the great benefit one can get by offering respect to even an ant that's engaged in the service of the Lord. So we can't really imagine how much service an ant can render to the Lord, but you can attain a very exalted position just by offering respect to an ant engaged in devotion. So it's what to speak of Bhakti so and so is washing the pots or whatever. So anyone who Krishna is very, very loving toward his devotees, and anybody who does any little thing to please him, Krishna has a very high opinion of. In the Nectar devotion, it talks about there's like the 64 qualities of Krishna, and one of them is grateful. And in that section, it's described that when Draupadi cried out, "Hey Govinda," Krishna said that I felt completely indebted to her for her crying out in helplessness, and the more I think about that, the more indebted I feel toward her. And then Prabhupada said, anyone who cries out the name of the Lord, Krishna feels very indebted to. What to speak to somebody who regularly chants his holy name. So anyone engaged in the devotional service is a very rare person, and we know this from when we go out distributing books, because very, very few people are interested in engaging in devotional service. And to convince them to take a book about devotional service requires a certain amount of endeavor. So most people are very apathetic about devotional service. So how happy Krishna is that somebody even cares a little bit about devotional service. That person is very dear to Krishna. So we also have to remember that even the most insignificant Vaishnava in the temple, even the ones who can't make it up from Mangalarati, or their favorite service is taking prasadam and fall asleep in their class or whatever. Actually, there's Vinananda Maharaj has some great stories about people falling asleep in class. So he said that in one time in the history of the Soho Street Temple, or the London Temple, it was arranged so when the pujari did the offering in the middle of the class, they had to walk through the temple room. And so the pujari came through the offering, and he looked, and everyone in the class was asleep. And then he looked at the speaker, and the speaker was also asleep. So we can't imagine. But even the people asleep.
He decided to take a nap also.
What's that?
He decided to take a nap.
I don't know.
Evam parampara prapta.
What's that?
Evam parampara prapta.
But even people who we like, there's this. Did I tell about how dear Shantaswami became a devotee?
No.
He was one of those people who would go to the Sunday feast, but he thought the kirtan was really raucous, it was really loud, and he didn't like it. And he wasn't interested in spiritual things, he only came for the food. So for many, many weeks, he came for the food. And then the temple president said, "You seem to like the prasadam, maybe you should come for lunch too." So he started coming for lunch. So, and then, so we'd been eating lunch in the Sunday feast for many, many weeks, and he was at home in his apartment in the evening, and he found himself chanting Hare Krishna, and without any desire to chant Hare Krishna. So when he went back to the temple for prasadam, he mentioned this to the devotees, and the devotee said, "Oh, that food you've been eating, it's not ordinary food, it's non-different from Krishna. Now Krishna's manifest on your tongue." So sometimes we criticize the people, right? We criticize the people who come to us for the food. We think, "Oh, these guys are just coming." But I actually ended up becoming initiated by Prabhupada and becoming a Swami, and now he preaches all over Eastern Europe. But he started out being a guy who just came for the food. So any person who does any little bit of devotional service is very dear to Krishna and is very highly elevated in society. And if we think about that, then we'll respect them, and we won't. And people are very fortunate to have faith in prasadam. And faith in any of the items of devotional service, whether it's the holy name or the deity. Sometimes people come and see the deity regularly. That's very rare. They're recognizing this isn't a statue, this is Krishna himself, and I'm going to spend the time and money it takes to come here just to see. So we can practice to eliminate Vaishnava aparad. We can practice within our mind, meditating on the glories of devotees in general, and the individual devotees who are living the ashram with us, that you might find fault with for different reasons. So, let's see if there's anything else I wanted to say. If you do offend a Vaishnava, it's recommend that you offer obeisances to them and ask for forgiveness. And they won't forgive you. You can take shelter of the holy name. Because it is actually possible to get free from the aspects of Vaishnava by chanting the holy name, but it's not the first recommended thing. The first recommended thing is to actually approach the Vaishnava and ask for forgiveness. Because the problem is our pride, and by doing that, we're humbling ourselves, which is helping to cure our problem. Whereas if we just try to take shelter of the holy name, ultimately we'll be successful, but it will take longer. I do want to say a little bit about Hare Krishna comments, and a little bit about the Hare Panchami festival. So are there any questions before we go on? One time, sometimes people, the month of Kartik, sometimes people do different vows, like they won't eat sweets, they'll only eat once a day, something like that. So I was thinking, all these devotional activities we do, they're so powerful. And the big problem is that I'm committing Vaishnava aparad. So for the month of Kartik, I'm not going to think anything bad about any Vaishnava the whole month. So it takes a little bit of practice sometimes. But you do feel a lot lighter at the end of the month. So that's something you might try sometime. Your next Kartik vow. So we read about the Hare Panchami festival, which is after the Rath Yatra. It's on the 5th day of the moon, which I think is the 5th day after the Rath Yatra festival. And how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu celebrated it is described in the Madhya Lila. So I'll read that little section from the Madhya Lila. And the word Hera means to see, and it means the goddess of fortune is coming to see Lord Jagannath feeling separation from him. Knowing that the Hare Panchami festival is drawing near, King Prataparudra attentively talked with Kashi Mishra. Tomorrow will be the function of Hare Panchami, or Lakshmi Vijay. Hold this festival in a way that it has never been held before. Report by Srila Prabhupada. The Hare Panchami festival takes place 5 days after the Rath Yatra festival. Lord Jagannath has left his wife, the goddess of fortune, and gone to Vrindavan, which is the Gundicha temple. Due to separation from the Lord, the goddess of fortune decides to come and see the Lord at Gundicha. The coming of the goddess of fortune to Gundicha is celebrated as Hare Panchami. The word Hare means to see and refers to the goddess of fortune going to see Jagannath. The word Panchami means the 5th day and is used because this takes place on the 5th day of the moon. King Prataparudra said, hold this festival in such a gorgeous way that upon seeing it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be completely pleased and astonished. Take as many printed cloths, small bells, umbrellas, and chamars as there are in my storehouse and in the deity's storehouse. Collect all kinds of small and large flags and ringing bells, then decorate the carrier and have various musical and dancing parties accompanying it. In this way, decorate the carrier attractively. You should also double the quantity of prasadam. Make so much that it will even surpass the Rath Yatra festival. That's something we don't do on this day. Maybe someday we can. Arrange the festival in such a way that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may freely go with his devotees and visit the deity without difficulty. In the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates with him to see Lord Jagannath at Sundarachala. Sundarachala is the Gundicha temple, and the temple of Jagannath at Jagannath Puri is called Nilachala, and the temple at Gundicha is called Sundarachala. Those words have meanings. Nilachala means blue mountain, and Sundarachala means beautiful mountain. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his personal devotees returned to Nilachala with great eagerness to see the Hara Panchami festival. Kashi Mishra received Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great respect, taking the Lord and his associates to a very nice place and had them seated. After taking his seat, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear about a particular mellow of devotional service. Therefore, mildly smiling, he began to question Sri Damodar. Although Lord Jagannath enjoys his pastimes at Dwarkadam and naturally manifests a sublime liberality there, still once a year he becomes unlimitedly eager to see Vrindavan. Pointing out all the neighboring gardens, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "All these gardens exactly resemble Vrindavan. Therefore Lord Jagannath is very eager to see them again." Externally he gives the excuse that he wants to participate in the Rath Yatra festival, but actually wants to leave Jagannath Puri to go to Sundarachala, the Gundicha temple, the replica of Vrindavan. The Lord enjoys his pastimes day and night in various flower gardens there. But why does he not take Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, with him? Sri Damodar replied, "My dear Lord, please hear the reason for this. Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, cannot be admitted to the pastimes of Vrindavan. In the pastimes of Vrindavan, the only insistence are the gopis. But for the gopis, no one can attract the mind of Krishna." The Lord says, using the car festival as an excuse, Krishna goes there with Subhadra and Baladev. All the pastimes for the gopis that take place in those gardens are very confidential ecstasies of Lord Krishna. No one knows them. Since there's no fault at all in Krishna's pastimes, why does the goddess of fortune become angry? Sri Damodar replied, "It is the nature of a girl afflicted by love to become immediately angry upon finding any neglect on the part of her lover." While Sri Damodar and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were talking, the procession of the goddess of fortune came by. She was riding upon a golden palanquin carried by 4 men and bedecked with a variety of jewels. The palanquin was also surrounded by people carrying umbrellas, chamara whisks, and flags, and it was preceded by musicians and dancing girls. Maidservants were carrying water pitchers, chamara whisks, and boxes for betelnuts. There were hundreds of maidservants, all attractively dressed and wearing valuable necklaces. In the angry mood, the goddess of fortune arrived at the main gate of the temple, accompanied by many members of her family, all of whom exhibited uncommon opulence. When the procession arrived, the maidservants of the goddess of fortune began to arrest all the principal servants of Lord Jagannath. Maidservants bound the servants of Jagannath, handcuffed them, and made them fall down at the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune. Indeed, they were arrested just like thieves who had all their riches taken away. Report by Srimad Bhagavatam. When Lord Jagannath starts his car festival, he gives assurance to the goddess of fortune that he will return the next day. When he does not return, the goddess of fortune, after waiting 2 or 3 days, begins to feel that her husband neglected her. She naturally becomes quite angry. Gorgeously decorating herself and her associates, she comes out of the temple and stands before the main gate. All the principal servants, Lord Jagannath, are then arrested by her maidservants, brought before her, and forced to fall down at the lotus feet. When the servants fall down before the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune, they almost fell unconscious. They were chastised and made the butt of jokes and loose language. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates saw such impudence exhibited by the maidservants of the goddess of fortune, they covered their faces with their hands and began to smile. Sri Damodar said, "There is no pride like this within the three worlds. At least I've never seen or heard of it. When a woman is neglected and disappointed out of egoistic pride, she gives up her ornaments and morosely sits on the ground, marking lines on it with her nails. I've heard of this kind of pride in Satyabhama, Krishna's proudest queen, and I've also heard of it in the gopis of Vrindavan, where the reservoirs of all transcendental mellows. In this case, the goddess of fortune, I see a different kind of pride. She manifests her own opulences and even goes with her soldiers to attack her husband. So that's the Bhagavatam question. Then he goes into talking about the varieties of egoistic pride manifested in Vrindavan, which is actually a different topic, so we'll stop here. So, the other topic was for Krishna Pandit, who's an associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's famous for dancing like anything in kirtan, and at one point dancing for 72 hours. And there's another Leela where Srivas Thakur is offended by, is it Devananda Pandit? Devananda Pandit's giving a Bhagavatam class, and he's presenting things in a very impersonal way, but Srivas Thakur just hears the storyline and interprets it in a devotional way, starts showing symptoms of ecstasy, and Devananda Pandit's disciples find it a disturbance and throw him out, basically. so the Devananda Pandit didn't stop them from doing this, so it was considered an aparad. And but later on, Devananda Pandit rendered some service to Prabhupada Pandit, and became elevated in devotional service, and actually felt bad about what he did before, and was actually completely transformed from a Vaishnava aparadi to an eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So those are a couple of things about Krishna Pandit. So does anybody have any questions or comments or realizations about any of those topics you'd like to share to make the class more exciting? Yes.
Krishna.
We don't have our Nitai Charan, we're feeling his separation.
Yeah, that's
He would always have 2 or 3 questions. I'll have to write them, so we're feeling separation.
I will try to follow it. So thank you for the class, Prabhu. You mentioned about Vaishnava Parad, and we see sometimes that during service, like things have to be quick and organized, but they are not always like this, and then we may commit a parad because of something that is not done, but it should be done on time, and then we can get like little frustration out of it, and we shout at some devotees, and so all this, like why this is, why Krishna is creating this situation, like how.
Well, it's revealing to us that we're not really on that level. That when you think about it, Lord Chaitanya is saying to become more tolerant than a tree and more humble than a blade of grass. So most of us have a long way to go. At least I do. and some of us aren't actually trying so hard to make that progress. But it's actually a serious instruction, and we actually have to practice tolerance and humility, because in our conditioned state it's unnatural for us. But in our pure state, it's second nature. So Krishna is revealing when intolerance and pride are revealed to us. It's good because we see that we've got a ways to go, and in fact our intolerance can be the cause of our becoming humble. You're like, actually I'm supposed to be tolerant, but in this case I'm not tolerant, what kind of devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu am I? So, and then when our mind has become more peaceful later in the day, or in the week, or the month, or in the year, we can come back to the devotee and apologize that I was overwhelmed by the mode of passion, and therefore I got unnecessarily angry. Please forgive me for ordering you around, even though I'm a subordinate, you should criticize you being late and offering it, whatever. Because of the Lord Chaitanya was very strict about the Vaishnava etiquette. He said it was the ornament of the devotee, and therefore we're especially not supposed to correct someone who's, seen to us by like realization or initiation or age. So that's particularly sad. So we can see as Krishna revealing the ways to go. Just make sure we apologize and Krishna. And sometimes when something comes up, we can present it. We can present it in different ways. We can blame the person, Like if somebody does something that hurts us, we can blame that person for doing whatever it was. Or we can just say, when you do that, it makes me feel like this, which is a neutral statement. It's not blaming the person, but it is informing them that, when they do this, it hurts you. Which actually isn't. It's not good that we hurt other people, but it's also not good if we criticize somebody in a superior position for them hurting us in some way.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you can say you can make a statement of fact without any accusations attached to it, which wouldn't be an aparadh.
That's nice. Relating to that as well, you mentioned that if junior tell older devotee to not do like this, for example, correct him, it's not appropriate, but then what is the right way to do it, because it may happen.
So then you tell the temple president, or you tell that person's authority, tell that person directly. Everyone has an authority. If you tell the authority, even the GBC, he has the authority of the whole GBC body. And then everyone, the temple president has an authority of the GBC. So you just tell the person's authority. It's like, and they may or may not do anything, but you did your part, you told the authority. And Krishna does want to create better situations for people, so sometimes if there's somebody you routinely get into disagreements with, you can arrange that to have different services in different places so that the issue doesn't come up. So Krishna, just like with that Ramachandra Puri, right, he was criticizing Lord Chaitanya's eating, criticizing the eating of the devotees, but Lord Krishna will only let him stick around Jagatpuri for so long and eventually went on his way, So Krishna has a program of kicking out all the people who cause trouble. So if somebody's really causing trouble to all the devotees, then Krishna's going to kick them out sooner or later. Just have to be patient. There's an amazing statement. I heard in a class, I think it was like 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I heard this statement in class. It was a very powerful statement, and it's like, this practice of devotional service is anartha nivritti. We were just talking about that the other day. Anartha nivritti. It's guaranteed to remove anarthas. So if you're attached to your anarthas, you will be removed along with them.
Oh wow. That's powerful.
That's a powerful statement. Right? The anarthas can't be in the pure presence of the deity and the holy name and the Vaishnava Sangha. So if you're attached to your anarthas, then you'll be kicked out. Okay, something. It's interesting. Every once in a while, somebody says something in Bhagavatam that class that really sticks in your mind for decades.
Yeah.
That was something. So, do you have any realizations, being a accomplished Bhagavad reciter, that you could add to our discussion today in the remaining 5 minutes before 9?
Hear some pieces.
Yeah. Right.
You mentioned the story of Devananda Pandit.
Yeah.
He was just recently we were reading from Chaitanya Bhagavatam, the whole story. He had been he was very austere in what he came out. He was living a life which was like envied by sannyasis.
Really?
And he was like Paka sannyasi. No, he was not a sannyasi, but he was a brahmana, grihastha probably, I'm not sure, but his lifestyle was that of, meticulously following everything.
Wow.
And he was basically shining. But because he was not a devotee, Lord Chaitanya didn't want to know. There was some kind of curse. I don't remember the details, but yeah, the thing is that whoever you are, whatever learned you are, you may be Bhagavatam reciter or whatever, and he was like speaking like demigod. But if you disrespect Vaishnava, and he didn't even do that directly, because his aparada was that he didn't see the purity of who was that, Gadadhar?
Srivas.
Srivas. Yeah, he didn't see the purity, and therefore when his students got rid of Srivas, then he didn't obstruct them. That was his offense. So he didn't see the bhakti.
Yeah, so that's interesting that he didn't offend him personally, but he didn't stop his followers from offending him. That also counted as
Yeah, when we keep silence, that's another thing that I cannot ask. That if I see something is being done wrong, what would be my reaction to that? And here there are two ways actually to react: the childish one and the adult one. The childish would be, well, I don't know, I will tell mama. So let them sort it out. And that's kind of, it works. I mean, that's a good way to do. It's better than, just offending somebody. But the adult way would be that you come to that person and you say, this is what I'm doing here. I mean, Srila Prabhupada gave us the mission to do this and this is what we're doing. And I see that you're also doing that, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I mean, this is what I want to do. So how can I help you because I see that you're doing this mistake. And it's not that it's your fault or something, but that's a mistake. I mean, I'm also making a lot of mistakes, so can you cooperate? I mean, I can help you, maybe next time you help me, because we have to do it better. And so when you have the common goal, and you don't have envy, and it doesn't mean you don't have envy, but you don't give way to your envy, right? Because envy is there in everyone's heart, but when you cooperate, then like where there is light, there is no darkness. So where there is cooperation, there is no envy. So getting out envy is a practical thing. It doesn't mean don't be envious. No, do cooperate, do work together. Then there is no envy. So therefore, we can speak directly. if there is no envy, which means that we are in a cooperative mode, then why not speak directly? Of course, if that's a senior person, that's another thing. Because with the seniors, sometimes you can also do that if you have trusting relationship with that senior person.
Okay.
You can approach and say, what can I do? Because I see that you're making this mistake and my mind is, is blown up. What can I do with this? But otherwise, if there is no proper relationship, better we don't get it. That's what I just heard and I was thinking.
Yeah, those are valuable contributions. Thank you. And another thing, I remember that Prabhupada said that if we're envious of someone, if we serve that person, that will reduce the envy in us. And,
Well, and it's also depending on different circumstances, according to time, place, and person. The same techniques can't be applied for everyone, maybe. As Prabhu told. If we have a relationship, good relationship, that can be one side. If he's senior or junior, depending on that also, it can be a style of correction.
Yeah, sometimes even if we serve, the envy doesn't go. Because there was no service, that was like lip service, or because serving means that cooperation.
yeah, that's what reminded me of it, your national cooperation.
Because there is no service I can do to a Vaishnava. Because how can I please him? My heart is not pure. I cannot serve this person. But I can serve his purpose.
Right.
And that's called cooperation. So this type of service will remove envy. But if we're just superficially serving, doing things with our hands, but our mind is not there, my mind means that I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm just doing it because of my motive. I want to ensure him that I'm a good person. So, but that's not getting rid of envy. It's just radiating.
Well, thank you for your attention and your contributions. I don't want to keep the Vaishnavas from their prasad.
Marathon. Chicken.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. His Grace Krishna Kripa Prabhu ki
Jai.
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 Bhaktivedanta ki Jai.